So a couple of new things in 2013. I'll first kind of go over the administration side of things first, and then we'll kind of go over what's new for the user aspect of the software here. Let me just adjust my screen a little bit so I can see a couple things more. All right. So first thing we'll take a look at is the workflows inside EPDM, though. That's one of the larger things I've changed on the administration side of things. For example, if I open up my QS workflow, I'm in my vault called Quick Start right here. So the interface itself for our workflow interface is pretty different. It's a little bit cleaner. One of the cool things now is that you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and zoom out. So, you know, if you have more complex workflows, you can, bigger workflows, you can zoom out of it to see the overall picture. One of the things as well is that there's a new print button. So you can print out the workflow directly rather than, taking screenshots and then print it and piecing it together to print that out. So right from here, you can just print out the workflow. Okay, here. So that's kind of the general interface itself. You'll see that the icons for everything is a bit different as well. Our states are these clear boxes. The transitions are, they don't really have boxes anymore until you hover over them. And, previously all the permissions were on the right side of the screen. But now in 2013, all the permissions are within the specific state and transition. So, for example, if I want to look in the permissions for this work in progress, just click on the text itself, and we can see the permissions of, the users and groups on the left, and the individual permissions on the right here. And then also we have, for states, previously you had a little drop down for which revision numbers to use. In this case, there's now a new tab where, you can see the different components that are there as well. Lastly, we have notifications and states. This is what I'll show you a little bit later on the notifications on a state instead of just a transition. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. I'll click cancel out of that. And for our transitions as well, kind of the same thing. You click on the text. If you click on the border, that's pretty much how you'd go about moving it. So you can see the little cursor changes to the little crosshatch for the little arrows for the moving it around. So if you want to go to the properties, you just have to click the text in there as well. So as usual, the top has kind of similar things for name, description, type. We'll go over that as well later. But kind of the same thing, permissions are in the permissions tab. Conditions now has its own tab where everything else is the same inside there. Any additional actions that we need to do, whether you're incrementing the revision or anything like that, or printing the PDF. Revision numbers, remember there's a button for previously for reset revision numbers. This is how we kind of increment or reset to right from here. And here's our, the same notifications as before, but instead of just that individual button that was on the transition on its own, we have our tab here for our notification. And one thing though, before I forget, another way is when you see here in the permissions for our workflow state, right now you don't get to see all the users or groups at once. You have to click on the Add Users group first, and then select our particular group or user. Whether you can pick a group right from the checkbox here, or if you want a specific user, you can expand this All Users node at the very top, and then you can pick individual users you want to add in. So for example, let's say I want to add maybe a viewers group right here. Hit OK. And then that lets them add it to this list. Then we still have to give them specific permission. So that's one little difference, is that you kind of have to add the groups to this list before you can apply permissions, whereas before you just see all the users and all the groups from the get-go. Let me double check here. Okay. All right. So let's get to that here. One of the first things that they added also in EPDM is delayed notifications or delayed in-state notifications. What that means is that you can create notifications that are triggered when a file has been in state for more than a specific length of time. So if something's been sitting in pending approval for a few days, you can add a notification system so it'll resend another notification to create repeat notifications here. So to do that, let's say in our workflow, we'll go ahead and add it into a workflow state. We'll go to maybe in pending approval. And then from here, there's that new notifications tab. And the first thing you have to click is this add folder notification button. And then here you can browse the vault, if it's a specific folder or you want a whole level vault notification. We'll just do the top level vault here. So we'll select OK. And then the next window is for what operation. A couple things now that I just delayed in state is that you can set notifications to happen during a check-in and check-out. So for example, if you want a certain group to be notified when something's checked in, you can just for the type you just select check-in and then add your recipients. But for the delayed in state, what a lot of people have been asking about is requested to be added in is when a file sits in a particular state for too long to have a notification sent out. So from here, for the folder notification, I set it for delayed in state. We set that it's right here. You already see what workflow we're in, and then what state we're looking at. It's because we went from the properties here, and then you can specify here trigger after 3 days in state, and then resend maybe every day after that. So you can have those options there. So there's always going to be by day. There's no control via minutes or anything like that. And we'll just hit OK. One thing though is because I didn't put any recipients, it's going to tell us that we would need to add some first. So we'll go over to the Recipients tab, add recipient, and as before, we can kind of do the same thing where we can, let's see here, maybe our managers would need to get notified. So I'm just going to click the managers group, hit OK. And you can see now they're showing it in this list here. Now hit OK. So you'll see the notification you're delayed more than 3 days. I'll go ahead and hit OK. So since it requires some days, though, I can't really show you how that works on the user side of things. But pretty much it'll be the same thing with whether you get it in via your SMTP email or through the EPDM database messaging. It'll resend after the days have the specified days have passed, and then resend after that. Let's see here. You can also create the delayed in-state notifications from Windows Explorer as well. You don't have to go through the workflow. So for example, here we are. You have to first click on a file though. So for example, this plate, this is my SOLIDWORKS part called a plate. I'll go ahead and go to the notify option here. On the right, you can go to my notification. So you can see here this is what has been added already for an add file notification. So whenever something is checked in of any file, it's going to be added here. I'll get a notification. But you can add, whether it's a file notification or folder notification. meaning a specific folder or a particular file. So because I right-click that plate, you can add a particular file notification. And for example, I'll say add this part here called top cover. Select open on that. And for this particular file, I can say when the file is next checked out, or if it's changed to another workflow state or delayed in state again. You can specify, okay, I want to know whenever this file is checked out. So then this notification will be sent to me when this file has been checked out for this particular top cover file, if I wanted to add that. And you can see when I add that, so you see what operation, which is that checkout, and then what file are we talking about in particular. And the other button here at the top left is the add folder notification. So it's kind of the same thing as we did within the workflow, but we're doing it right from Windows Explorer. So you can set up individually for, or users can set up individually for themselves as well. And you see the same options as well, where change workflow state. All right. So let me go ahead and hit OK here. All right. And next thing I want to go ahead and show you guys is the new parallel workflow transitions that have been added to the Vault as well for 2013. Previously, there was no direct way of adding parallel transition. It was all you had to make another state, and it had automatic transitions based on conditions and whatnot for your files. Now in 2013, it's all built in, so you don't have to do that workaround. For example, here we'll have this approved transition in our workflow. We want to make this a parallel transition. So go into that transition. Now for the type, the normal is your default. We'll change that, and you can see here's what we're used to: a normal or automatic. Now we have this new option for parallel. I'll pick that out. So things though, we have to add who can work with this parallel approval. So we just click on this Add Role button, and I'll say View Team. So I'll add members, and I'll say on the managers and the administrators, which should just be dot control. Actually, I just want the admin user. So it'll be the admin user and the two managers. And you'll see here, so admin and the managers group, and I'll hit OK. So here you can see the review team. If you need to edit this, for example, here right now it's 1 out of 3 users are required. If I go to Edit Role again, we're back at the role window. You can see the required users. So maybe you need only 1 out of the 3, or in a more common scenario, it would be 2 out of 3 users would need to approve this or approve the transition for it to go through. So I think that's good, just 2 out of 3. So when you click OK, you'll see required users is 2 out of 3. So how do we can take a look at this in action. So let me hit OK. And I'll save the workflow. And I'll head back into our Vault here. Here's a file. Let me go ahead and just check this in first. And remember that was for approving the file itself. So I'm going to say here, review me. Now it's at pending approval. I'm going to go ahead, and remember I'm logged off, right? I'm logged in as a designer, so I'm going to log off as a designer first. I'll log back in. and I'll log in as a manager. I just have my, the usual notification that something is, actually that's from a previous run here. Let me just discard that. Go into the vault. Here's that file is pending approval. One thing though is that when you select the file, you go to change state, and you can see the transition, which is here approved 0 out of 2. So 0 out of the 2 people have approved it. And I guess here's that notification for it waiting for approval. So I'm just going to discard that. So here's the approval. This is the same window, but you can see the result here. The file doesn't get moved yet because it still says requires one more user. So I'll say, OK. Looks good. Put in my password since it has authentication. I'll go ahead and hit OK. So now the file just sits there. We need another person to review it. If at any point you don't want to, you want to cancel that approval, you can. If you just right-click, change state, and then go, you have this revoke. You have the revoke ability, so you can cancel your initial vote as well. So it'll just pretty much just cancel your review. And then it'll head back and it'll have 0 out of 2 approval. So if it hit OK, that's what would happen. But in this case, we want to move this along here. I'll log off. I'll log back in here as the admin user. Head back into that projects folder. And here's that plate. Change state. Approve. One thing, though, if we take a look at the workflow, the file is at pending approval. We should be able to see a reject changes transition, but right now, I'll show you again. Change state. We only see approve. So one thing to be careful of is that we'll go to that reject changes transition. You can see there's an option here. It says hide when sibling parallel transition is chosen. So in this case, the reject changes transition doesn't show because the file's in this approval, in this approve transition where it's waiting for other people to approve it. So if you want to have this reject changes to be available, you guys have to uncheck this hide once the sibling parallel transition is chosen. So I'll uncheck that and I'll save the workflow again. I'll head back to the vault here in a local view. If I do modify, change state, now you can see that reject changes does show up. And then when you do the reject changes, in this particular workflow, reject changes here, that'll push it back to work in process, and it'll wipe any approvals that happened for this approve transition. So any votes that happened before will just get wiped out. So back into the local view, we'll go ahead and modify that, change state, and we'll just go ahead and approve it. And you can see the history of what other managers have, or other people that did the approval did. Agreed. Looks good. I'll type in my password for our dual authentication. And now the file goes into the next state of release, which is our next state in our workflow. So that's how the parallel transition works. Like you saw, if you need more approvals, you can add more people, and you can add the required amount of people to approve that transition. Okay. One other thing that kind of a general thing that they added for EPDM is version-free variables. What that is here, let's see, like something like, let me maximize this, something like vendor that you don't really want. What version variables means that you can modify a variable on the data card without having to check out the file and check it back in. So things like a vendor cost, something that you don't want to rev the file in order to change a data card field. You can, and that's what it's called, a version-free variable. So for example, we'll do it for this vendor field, and to do that, let's head over into our administration tool. Take a look at our variables on the left. And let me find vendors. There we are, vendor. Double click on that. And here's that, the usual window. But one new option we have here at the very top right is this version free. So if I select that, you'll notice that any of the attributes that you're tied to will not are now gone now. So one thing with the version-free variable, that kind of a caveat to that, is that it does not tie back to the file itself. So it won't tie back to the custom property or anything like that, because tying back to the custom property requires to check out the file, modify the file, and check it back in. So that's why it does not show up there. So for things that you need, like maybe for like part number, description that you'd want on the file itself, you wouldn't want that as a version-free variable. You'd only want it for other variables that you don't want to rev the file for. So we'll hit OK to that. And because of that, let me bring that up again 1 second. You'll see this giant warning here. Only users and groups having the permission of edit version-free variable data will be able to update the value of this variable. So that's another a new option as well. You tie into the version-free variables, you have to have the permission to make changes to a version-free variable. And that, let me show you. Let me just go to my admin account. It's under the folder permissions. And it's this option down here. So you have to have the folder permission for edit version-free variable data turned on. And also in the workflow. So it's another layer of permissions that is in the system now. So let's say here for our quick start workflow, admin, you'll have that. Hit OK. Now I'll select that, reselect it here. Now vendor, I can see that it's not grayed out anymore. I can select SOLIDWORKS Corp, hit save. And now that variable has been updated. So it's just another ability. So maybe you have some kind of a dispatch script set up. So you have a yes/no variable or a yes/no variable on your data card that you need to work with dispatch to go through. You can skip the part of checking out the file, checking it back in, and making that change. So you can just that's the benefit of the version-free variable, that it just modifies the variable without you having to check out the file and check it back in. All right. Some of the things on the user end of things, let me double check here. With the another thing you probably saw before on my administration tool, let me just minimize or close out of this workflow. Now in 2013, there's this recently used window or kind of background. So anytime you modify a specific node or item, it'll show up in this recently used list. So anything we modify in the past will show here, and it'll stay available even after you close out of the administration tool and reopen it, this list will stay here. So you can see what I recently used was I looked at the admin. I click on that. It'll open up what that window I was in, or also that vendor variable, and even workflows as well. If I click on that, it'll open up the workflow that I last worked in. So it's a pretty convenient, kind of more productivity tool. So you can manage it right where maybe you're working with your workflows and you're testing it out and you close out of the administration tool. You can get back to that right from here rather than having to browse through, or maybe you forgot what user you just modified. You can get that from here. And if you want to clear up this list, there's a button here on the bottom right of the list for clear. When you click on that, it just clears that list out. All right. So other improvements, we kind of covered everything from the administration tool. So just an overview, we covered the delayed in-state workflow notification. So let me bring up that workflow here. Remember, it was in pending approval. We have this delayed in-state notifications. You have to go to the workflow, into the state, and then into the notifications tab to add a delayed state notification. And if you, like I said, if you need to modify this or add more, you can just double-click to modify that delayed state and specify after how many days, and then resend after X amount of days as well here. And if you need to add another, for a different kind of time period or anything like that, you want a different set of rules, you can add another folder notification as well. Another thing we covered as well was the parallel transition, like I showed you before. You have to go into the Roles tab to add roles. So you can see here, the managers group has 2 users, admin is just 1 user, and the required amount is 2. So that's why it's this 2 out of 3 required users for the parallel approval. Okay, and the other thing I covered in the beginning, just to kind of recap again, is the interface itself. You can zoom in, zoom out, so you can work a bit better with, if you have a more complex workflow, you can just zoom out of it quite a bit and see the whole workflow right from your single screen. And then once again, you have the print button here, so you can print your workflows. You don't have to screenshot, capture a screenshot and paste it and print that out. You can just print right from the administration tool. All right, so that covers the administration side of things. There's a few user interface improvements as well. So let me head over back into our local view, into a folder here. So one thing here, I have this assembly. And one thing that has changed is the bill materials tab. It's cleaned up now. One of the few options that have changed here is the view on the left. You can see your indented parts only, top level. We can reorganize it a bit better. You can show the tree, hide the tree. And you can see whether you want to view activated or not activated bombs, or if it's as built or latest right here. And right from here, you don't have to, well, actually, you never had to in the first place, but you can view the bomb based on which version. So this is the latest at version A. And here's configurations. So the add tab, door closed, door open. And on the right, over here, you see the save button as before. They just kind of reorganized it. Open as a CSV file, the search in the bill materials dialog, and a compare bomb. So the compare BOM like it was before. Now instead of that little window popping up when you click compare BOM, you're comparing what BOM you were looking at. So we were looking at version A. And for the drop down here, you can say I want to compare to when the file was initially created. So what we were looking at before and what we're comparing it to. So for example, if you were looking at version 1, if you're looking at this BOM here, version 1, and run the compare BOM, it's going to compare version 1 to whichever we pick from the drop down here. All right. See here. Another UI that has been added for SOLIDWORKS for our general users is we can close SOLIDWORKS files on check-in. That's a pretty convenient tool here. Let me get to a file. I'm logged in as admin, so I can go ahead and check out this release file. I just want to show you the functionality of this. So I have this plate checked out. Go ahead and open that up inside SOLIDWORKS. Not sure why that's not. There it is. No. Okay. Still loading here. That file. Okay, I think it just opened up a new instance of SOLIDWORKS. That's okay. I'm just going to close out my old instance that I had open. So here, I have this file checked out. Let's say I make a change to this. Just make it some simple change. Make it a little thicker, and I'll just save the file. So now in the vault, for some reason it thinks that this file is not in a particular vault. Let me just close this out here. Let's do a file open right from here. Okay. All right. So it's already thicker. We just haven't checked it in yet. One of the new options in 2013 is that when you do the check-in, you have this option here at the very top right. The default as before was just reload files after check-in. So you would check in the file, it would reload the file from after it checked it in. Usually whether it becomes read-only, it'll become read-only after you check it in, and then you'll have to refresh that from the vault. So it takes some time. So I have a new option here for close files after check-in. So you don't have to waste resources reloading the file off the vault. So here, I'll say made plate thicker. And remember, I chose the option for close files after check-in. I'll go ahead and check in. And previously, you would have to reload. It'll keep that window open, reload the file, and it'll just say, read only after you check it in. In this case, you just can save time, just close the part out, or assembly even, after check-in. So it saves you time. All right. Another thing that has been changed on the user end of things is the Contains tab and where used. So let me head over to an assembly here. So take a look at the Contains tab. One of the main things that were changed is the drop down here. You can say view top level only or all levels. Previously, it was just, you'd always see all levels. So you'd see, if an assembly has a part that has an attachment or anything like that, it would show all the way down the tree, but you can just see top level only. So you'll only see, in this case, in the Contains tab, just the assembly parts and subassemblies. You won't see the subassemblies parts anymore. And as before, the interfaces just follow the same cleaned up look, where you can look at different versions. Configuration drop-downs right below that. And the same options here for export, open a CSV, and custom references. So kind of the same thing with where you use as well. By default, as previously shown, you can show all levels or the top level. And you can have the option for show all for any of the where used or just the latest. So if something was dropped off, you can show whatever's the latest version attached. Because if you see show all here, many versions of the drawing are attached because at some point, the assembly was changed, but the drawing was not, and so forth. So that's why there's multiple versions attached. So you can just view just the latest attached right from here. And from the where used, you can also open, look at the properties for the selected file, or browse to. So just the icons are cleaned up and it looks a lot nicer as well. Okay. Another thing that that was added here is that when you create a manual reference, that's been modified as well, so you can change the quantity now. So if I head over to just this folder here, let me go ahead and just check out this plate file that I checked in earlier. And I have this glue instructions here. I can just go ahead and do a copy, right-click, paste as reference. So one new column that was added, let me widen this up a bit, is quantity. So from here, you can specify a specific quantity. Maybe you want 3 of whatever files you're creating a reference for. Hit OK. And then if I go ahead and check that in, I see that the glue is checked out by someone else, but that's OK. But you can see here when I go to the Contains tab, you'll see the file in question and the quantity. So if I take a look at the bill of materials, it'll also show the file in question that was added as reference and its quantity right here. Okay. Another interface to add in that they added for 2013 is to do a full row selection. It's kind of convenient because you can see right now I have it turned off. When you select a file, it just selects the file. So if you're browsing to the right or left, you don't know what you selected anymore. You can go to options or display options as a user, and you have this option here for full row select. So now when you select an item, the whole row is selected, so you can go to the scroll to the right a bit, and you'll see what you've selected already. And you can also select right from here as well. Let's see. Think of a question here. I just want to see that question in one moment. Can you attach the file as a 0 quantity? I don't think so, but I can just double check here. Check that plate out again. I'll attach this file instead. I'll do a copy, paste that as reference, change that quantity to 0. No. So you'll pretty much use 0. You remove the reference. So it's not going to work that way. So no. All right. Like I kind of backtracking here. With the selection with row, it's kind of convenient. Scroll to the right or left. You can always see what you've selected. And you can also select per row as well. I click and drag. So one key thing though is that if you click and drag, you're not making a selection box anymore. You're just clicking and dragging the file. So you don't get to use the Windows select unless you can select something that's not there anymore. Since the whole row now becomes an item, you can't just click out here to make a Windows selection. You have to go to the bottom or use Control Select or Shift Select in that regard. So like so. So fortunately, you can turn it on or off. So depending on your preference, it's more of a user thing. Let's see here. I think I covered most of the. Already covered all the big things already. Going over the little things. We have this user information as well now. When you hover over the username, users can see their picture if we added one, or last time they've logged in, how many files they have checked out. You can see right from here. So this is what you see here is determined on what's been added in the user properties. So if I head back into the administration tool, I have my admin user. Double click on him. If I want to add a picture for them, you can hit this button at the top here, browse for picture. And you can just browse for, JPEG, bitmap, whatnot, and it'll add that for that particular user. And if you had an email address, it'll show as well, and the information will show for the users when they mouse over their username, or if they're logged in or logged out. All right, and lastly is the Windows Explorer favorite links. So now automatically, whenever you create a local view for your vault, you will have, scroll all the way to the top here, your favorite links inside Windows 7. All the vaults that you have will get added to this list automatically. So whether you're in a subfolder or whatnot, you can just click right from here. Click Start, and it'll just browse to that location. So instead of before having click and drag the top of the vault, it'll just automatically get added in whenever you create a local view. So yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to show you guys. Let's see here. Anyone have any questions here? Let's see. I have a question here. Let me expand that. Question is, can you pin the name column to the window so when you scroll left and right, you still see what file you are looking at? Fortunately, no. It's not like in Excel where you can pin a column and have that always stay there, and you can only scroll left and right, and the name column just stays there. Unfortunately, no. There's no feature for that right now. That's a good suggestion, though. And you can just scroll left and right like an Excel sheet, and this column would stay there. That's a good SPR that we could you can create for future enhancements of the software. But for right now, it does not do that. Any other questions from everything we've covered? So on the user side of things, we covered the Bill of Material tab, just the updated interface and kind of the cleaned up buttons, the Contains tab as well with an updated interface, and the ability to show all levels or top level only. And same thing with the word used with the all levels or top level only. I have a question here on how to control check-in and check-out access for individuals or groups. That's the same as before, whether it's in individual permission or a group permission. So usually we always recommend, control your permissions with groups, not users, because it's just a lot easier to move a person from one group to another or add them to the multiple groups if need be. Let's see here. So engineers. Once again, it's just a dual layer permission, whether you can add or rename files to be able to check, to add a file to the vault in that location. Checkout is once again just a checkbox inside your permissions. But remember, it's a dual permission level, dual permission system where you have to have based on location on its folder permissions, and then a state for the workflow the file is sitting in. So if I say work in process, which is the first state in this workflow for all our files, you can have the add or rename file, which is pretty much to check to create a file in this workflow, and then check out a file. Any other questions? All right. Once again, thanks for sitting with me on this morning for learning what's new in Enterprise 2013. I'll stay online for a few more minutes, or 5-10 minutes, to answer any questions that you guys may have. And once again, my name is Enrico Tolentino. I'm one of the senior PDM specialists here at Hawk Ridge.